someone is joining us at 1:14 in the morning. Thank you. All right. So without delay, I'm just looking for the applicant, actually. Hello. We can't start without the applicant, so let's give it a minute.
I do see one applicant on. I'll message the other.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Troy.
For those who just joined, we're just waiting for the applicant of the first hearing. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Joe Dwick here.
Hi, Joe.
What you know, Joe?
He's jumping on soon.
Thank you very much for the update. Shahid, your hand is up. How can I help you?
I'm just want to say good evening.
It was a waving hand, not a raising hand.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Details.
The picture speaks 1,000 words, right?
Apologies for this. Izzy's trying to get on, but he's saying the link is no good. I'm trying to send him another one.
Just another quick update. We're still waiting for the applicant for the first hearing to join us. For everyone who has joined the call after my last announcement, thanks.
All right, he's trying to call in on his phone. I had the same problem last month actually. It's pretty challenging to follow the link from your phone if you're in between two spots. Desktop has worked fine for me, but the phone is challenging. I think that's what he's struggling with. Trying to troubleshoot it with him. Apologies. I know it sets us a bit behind, but hopefully he's able to call in very soon.
Thanks. And I know that the presenter for the second application is here, but we can't do a public hearing for a time that's earlier than the publicly noted time. So thanks everyone for all the patience.
Hello?
Hello, we hear you. Mr.
Hi,
Weiss?
first and foremost, I apologize. I unfortunately was going to be using a computer. The computer is not working, so I have to call in. I apologize for the delay on the time. I know that this was called for 6:15. So certainly my apologies for the delay.
You're fine. We'll start right away. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll get started. And if you're comfortable using your phone, just let us know if you have any technical difficulties, okay?
Sure.
Okay, great. We're going to get
Thank you.
started. This public hearing is called to order at 6:23 p.m. on Monday, October 3rd, 2022. This meeting is being held via WebEx as per New York City's emergency declaration extension, allowing virtual access to public meetings under the New York State Open Meeting Law, which allows New Yorkers to virtually participate in local government meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony with respect to a request to co-name Avenue N and Ocean Avenue to Moshe Berkowitz Way. CB14's policy on street co-namings are to defer to the relevant New York City councilperson. As street co-namings are administered through an omnibus bills proposed in the council, this hearing will be held at the request of New York City Council member Anna Vernikov. The applicant for the proposal is Izzy Weiss, who will be speaking on behalf of the application. A list of criteria was sent to Mr. Weiss in advance of this hearing and shared with the board. Following Mr. Weiss's presentation, we will invite public testimony, and then CB14 board members will have an opportunity to ask questions. Members of the public were asked to register in advance to testify. Each speaker will be permitted up to 3 minutes and may not receive additional time from another speaker. Please clearly, for the record, state your name and organization if applicable prior to giving testimony. Mr. Weiss, the applicant and presenter, we move to you. Go ahead and give your presentation.
Thank you so much, first and foremost, for giving me this opportunity to speak. On behalf of Moshe Berkowitz, I would like to disclose also that I actually do work for Councilwoman Vernikov's office. I do work for the Councilwoman. In summation, the reason why that I believe that this is so important to have this street co-named in honor of Moshe Berkowitz is because he was a very valued member of this community. And while his time on earth was short, he represented it to the best of his ability. I'm just going to give you a brief background on who he was, what he was about, and what led to the end of his life. and why we are to where we are currently. Moshe Berkowitz was born on October 10th, 1985, him being the elder of two siblings, with his brother Dan. His father, an American citizen, his mother, an Israeli citizen. He grew up at 1902 Avenue L, which is actually 2 blocks from where the request of the co-naming is. Moshe was bilingual, as he spoke both English and Hebrew at home. He went to local schools his entire life, starting out at Mizrahi Lebanim, now known as Yeshiva Derech HaTorah, and he went to a few other schools, including Mir Yeshiva on Avenue R and Ocean Parkway. When he was 12 years old, in fact, just a few weeks from his bar mitzvah, his father at age 43 suffered a catastrophic stroke that rendered him paralyzed on one side of his body, which meant at the age of 12, Moshe would need to become the man of the house, per se. Sure enough, a few months after his bar mitzvah, his mother decided to move back to her native Israel and left Moshe to fend for himself, his dad, and his brother. This was at the ripe old age of 13. While he had some help from his aunt and uncle, Moshe had to help in any way possible with his father, from the simplest things such as using the bathroom to getting him dressed in the morning. This was Moshe's life till he eventually moved out of his father's house later on. While all this turmoil in his life, Moshe still maintained a straight path to success. He finished school, and at the pushing of his aunt, he went to college. At the time of his death, he was finishing a degree in business management from Brooklyn College, having previously graduated Kingsborough Community College and obtaining his associate's degree. To supplement income, he decided to do something he truly loved. He became a teacher at a school known for taking in troubled kids from the community. He knew he could connect to them as he had such a hard upbringing, and with this, he developed many relationships with these young men. He spent 4 years teaching the 8th grade at this yeshiva, Berchas Shmuel. During this time, he was involved not just during school hours, but spent many hours after school mentoring these boys by taking them out on trips for food and other fun activities. He knew how to reach them in ways nobody else could, and they loved and respected him for that. It was during one of these times that he lost his life. On November 29, 2010, Moshe was driving home from a bowling trip with a few of the boys from the yeshiva, and as he crossed Ocean Avenue and Avenue N going northbound, he was struck by a drunk driver going 80 miles per hour. He never had a chance to think. He never had a chance to swerve. He was killed instantly as the drunk driver T-boned his car. While paramedics rushed him to the hospital and worked on him for nearly an hour, it was futile, as he passed away that night from his injuries. Moshe was only 25 years old. And on a personal level, for myself at the time, my nephew was actually born not 30 minutes from when Moshe was officially pronounced dead. At his funeral, there were nearly 1,000 people from the community that attended, and that is just a microcosm of who and what he meant to the community. The yeshiva did something that spoke volumes of him, as they wrote a Torah in his honor, and it is customary that when a young man passes away not having started a family of their own, a Torah is written to honor their memory. As I mentioned before, he was struck by a drunk driver, and it took nearly 3 years to get his killer to trial. The trial lasted for 3 months, while the jury finding the assailant guilty of second-degree manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 4 to 12 years in prison. He ended up serving nearly 6 years, and he was released on parole. While I am not the judge and jury, a person's life is worth more than 6 years. It has to mean something. This is what led to me wanting to have the street renamed in his honor, so that A, people can remember him from the community when they see his name, and B, to show that drunk driving has real consequences. Ultimately, a few minutes of not thinking can lead to lifelong destruction. I beg the board to approve this request, as it will mean so much to this community that cherished this person that Moshe was. And it is my belief that if this can inspire just one person not to drink and drive, it was well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. White, for your testimony. I have no other pre-registered speakers. I wanted to invite the Legislative Director, Troy Olson, to chime in if he had words to say. Otherwise, we'll move on to the board.
Yes, well, first off, thank you to the board, to Community Board 14 for accommodating this request, and thank you to Izzy, who you were his friend and you knew him, for being the presenter today. I obviously did not know him, but we've made it a policy to include the community for all of these co-namings, and as Community Board 14 develops that policy, I'm happy to be of service in any way I can, and I wanted to make sure that you know, everyone is a bit more informed and this is improved as we go forward. And regarding this, I you know, I don't want to sway the board one way or another, but I do think there's a dual meaning here. in terms of remembrance of someone's life that was cut short, far too short, and also, as Izzy said, you know, this also has a public service aspect to it. If one person can look at the conamed street in the future, and one less person drinks and drives, or even sees and reads the story and internalizes the consequences of it, it's well worth it, absolutely. So thank you for having this hearing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olson. So now I'm ready to open up the discussion to the board. Are there any questions from board members? Please raise your hand. I have a question starting with Joe Dweck.
Thank you, Chairwoman Brown. I don't have a question. I have a comment, I suppose. And maybe it is a question. At the last meeting, we had a similar co-naming request. And at the time, I voiced my objections to it. And I want to be clearer about my objections. This is tragic and a wonderful life that cut short, inspiring. Unfortunately, he left no heirs, and his legacy will have to be carried on by others. However, I have 40 people living on my block. That's with all private homes. And in the course of the last 50 years, I must have had 150 people living on the block. On my particular block, I've had Holocaust survivors. I had one person that they made movies about, the Belskis, my dear neighbor for 35 years. He saved, well, there's 50,000 people alive today. There was a movie made about him. There's nothing that we put for a co-naming of a street for him. There's oncologists, rabbis. My point is that if we do this, and I don't know, in fact, that the guidelines have in fact been followed, the city guidelines for co-naming. We don't know that here. We have a situation where other blocks, other apartment buildings, people are not aware. They don't have access to the community board and to the co-namings that we have now. And I think it's a disservice to those folks to do that. And I think that we're opening up, and we opened up last month, a very poor precedent that is going to lessen the meaning of co-naming. As I said before, I think it should be reserved only for people who died in the line of duty to the city or to the country. I don't think it should be done for people that we had people's mothers that they obviously loved, that they wanted co-named for the street. How do we do that? Where do we draw the line on these things? I also voted an abstention last time because I didn't think that I thought a no was too severe. I'm voting no, and I encourage everybody to please vote no. I think it's a wrong message we're sending for this and for the future. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. I believe everyone here received the City Council's guidelines on co-naming. They're objective with a subjective, perspective. Everyone here is welcome to vote as they feel based on the criteria that was provided. Hindi, your hand is up, and I just want to remind we have 6 minutes left to this public hearing.
Okay, so I respectfully hear what Mr. Dweck had to say. I feel, though, that there are cases and there are tragedies that occur. In this case of a young 25-year-old person who never got a chance to live and who was a leader who helped the community a lot. And there are people in his community who would love to have his name. And just because some people don't know that they have an option of using names doesn't mean that we should punish this. And I feel that he had a tragic life. He did a lot of good for the community. That he should have a chance to have a street named after him. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Hindi. And Steve Cohen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think I was just looking at the co-naming guidelines, and I think the part of it that would apply, because there's for 3, A, B, C, and D, the only one that seems to apply here, as far as I'm understanding, is C. and that requires that the person engage in extensive community involvement or activism, including but not limited to the providing of aids to members of a community in need. So I just wanted to flag that because I think we're kind of on the borderline in this case, in my opinion, as to whether that prong is met based on the facts described. Thanks.
Very good, thank you. Seeing no other hands, I'd like the board to move towards a recommendation. Remember, this is something that's been brought forth by the council member. The council member is looking for a recommendation from the board. So one item I just want to bring to your attention. It is your duty to have an opinion about matters before this board. An abstention is a decision by the board not to vote. One legitimate reason for a board member not to vote is because information about the motion was limited or unavailable, or they were unable to process the information in due time. In this case, this public hearing, each board member received the city council's criteria for code namings and written and spoken testimony from the applicant supporting the action. So please know that if a board member chooses to abstain, it will be assumed that they were unable to meet their fiduciary responsibility of reviewing the materials provided beforehand. All right. So I'll just start. Is there a motion on the floor to recommend to the full board?
Motion to approve.
Seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you, Hindi. We'll move towards voting in the negative. All those opposed, please state so and your name as opposed to raising your hand. So I'm
no.
Thank you.
Ruth Hassoun, no.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Denny's.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Dawn Walker, no.
Okay. Any abstentions?
Arden, I'll abstain.
All right. Anyone ineligible to vote? Thank you very much, everyone. It is 6:38. The board, the office will tally the votes and I will give you the results at the general meeting. Let's just take a pause right now. This public hearing is closing at 6:38 and I will see you promptly in 2 minutes for the next public hearing. Thank you very much.
I believe it's 6:40.
Welcome back, everyone. That was a very quick 2 minutes. I'm just checking to see that the applicant is here. Yes, I see him. We have a quorum. Let me move myself on to the next public hearing. All right. This public hearing is called to order at 6:40 on Monday, October 3rd, 2022. This meeting is being held via WebEx as per New York City's emergency declaration extension, allowing virtual access to public meetings under the New York State Open Meetings Law, which allows New Yorkers to virtually participate in local government meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic. The purpose of this hearing is to hear a public testimony with respect to a request to co-name Avenue N and East 15th Street to Benjamin W. Schaeffer Way. CB14's policy on street co-namings are to defer to the relevant New York City councilperson, as street co-namings are administered through omnibus bills proposed in council. This hearing is being held at the request of New York City Council member Ina Vernikoff. The applicant for the proposal is Martin Samoilov, who will speak on behalf of the application. A list of criteria was sent to him in advance of this hearing and shared with the board. Following Mr. Samoilov's presentation, we will invite public testimony, and then CB14's board members will have an opportunity to ask questions. Members of the public were asked to register in advance to testify. We have 3 registered speakers in addition to the applicant. Each speaker will be permitted to speak up to 3 minutes and may not receive additional time from another speaker. Please state your clearly for the record your name and organization, if applicable, prior to giving testimony. I give the floor to Mr. Martin Samoilov to make his presentation. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I want to just thank Roy Olson from the Pennsylvania Senator's office and Sean Campbell and Tanya Hoyer for putting this public hearing together. I've been trying to do this for some time. I really appreciate your help in putting it together. The proposal is to co-name the northeast corner at Avenue N and East 15th Street as Benjamin W. Schaeffer Way, after Ben Schaeffer, who many of you probably knew. He frequent presence at the CB14 meetings. In fact, one of the last times I saw him before he died was at a CB14 meeting, the last one in person. He lived in Midwood for his entire life, and he served for 2 decades as a conductor with the MTA. He was also a NYPD 70 precinct council member and a NYPD 70 precinct auxiliary officer. Toward the end of his life, he was elected as a local 100 vice chair of RTO of his union, the WU. The thing that he's probably most known for, and the thing that I think makes him fit the criteria, and I'm going to go in detail over the criteria because there's been some concern about those. The thing that he's most known for, and the thing that I think warrants the co-naming, is an act he did in 2018. In 2018, he evacuated his car, his train car, and evacuated the passengers on it after someone began spilling gasoline onto the train. It was an act of potential arson, and he evacuated the train, for which he received the MTA Medal of Excellence in 2018. At the time, the interim president of the MTA, Sarah Feinberg, actually this is after his death, said that Ben, quote, showed what it means to be a public servant, most notably putting his own life at risk to ensure the safety of the passengers in his care while evacuating a train car in 2018. I want to talk just a little bit about the criteria and how he fits those criteria. Well, the first criteria says that someone has to be deceased for at least 2 years. Ben died in April 2020 at one of the first deaths kind of within Midwood, within the community of COVID-19. He was 58. It was the day after his birthday, just shortly before he planned to retire after his decades with the MTA. So he fits that criteria, the first one. The second criteria says that someone has to be a New York City resident or native with specific ties to the community. As mentioned, he was born, lived, and he died in New York City. In fact, many of his coworkers tried to donate plasma, but he was already on a ventilator at the time. But he lived in Midwood his entire life, so he fits that second criteria. And the third criteria mentions that someone who knowingly risks their own life to save the life of another person in an act of terrorism above and beyond the call of duty is also considered for Bqe naming. As I mentioned before, if you look at the quote and the news reports of that evacuation, the MTA interim president, Dar Farmick, specifically said that he put his own life at risk to ensure the safety of those passengers. So I think he fits that criteria in engaging in an act of terrorism above and beyond the call of duty, because he could have not evacuated the crew as well, but he put his life at risk to save those passengers, and thankfully the person who stole the gasoline, as a result of that, was taken into custody and was arrested. And lastly, I just want to say just a little bit about Ben Schaeffer, because I think there's really no way to have lived in Midwood in the past 2 decades and not have seen or known Ben Schaeffer in some way, whether it's at these meetings, at the precinct council meetings, whether it's just anywhere within the community. He really served Midwood and loved Midwood. He patrolled Midwood, and it was part of his heart. In addition, he also loved his profession. He served in the union. They elected him as a vice chair, and he lived and breathed his job. He lived and breathed his neighborhood. And I think because of what he did in 2018, and because of how sudden his life was cut short at 58, it was just right before he was eligible to retire, and it was sudden. It was shocking for a lot of people, and I think it was mentioned also at this board at our first virtual meeting back. I think if you look at sort of his record and not just the act in 2018, but also his record of service within the precinct, within the community, and within the union, I think there's something very inspiring about his life, and I think there was a hole left by him passing when he did, both within Midwood and within the MTA, within the Transport Workers Union, and I think within New York City. I was his neighbor. My building is across the street from his, and it's just very unfortunate that he's no longer with us to speak his mind and say his mind and service within the MTA, within his union, within the precinct, within the community. And it's a very unusual record in that just how much he did that he didn't have to do. He didn't get paid for a service in the precinct. He didn't have to evacuate that car. He didn't have to work with a union. This was all selfless volunteer service. And, if you look at the record, I think you will see that he fits the criteria, the specific criteria that was sent. So I would also defer you to the statement that I sent, which has that written down clearly. So thank you for the time. Again, thank you for Councilman Bernicke's office and the 14 for taking the time and putting the hearing together. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next person who is registered to speak. We have about 10 minutes left for this meeting, so I'll ask the next 3 people who are registered to be brief if they could. The next person is Lisa Smid. I believe you're still muted, Ms. Smid.
All right.
We
Can
hear
you hear
you
me
now.
now?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try to condense 20 minutes of info into 3. Ben's contributions include Transit Advisory Committee for Brooklyn Borough President Howard Golden, Treasurer of the 70th Police Precinct Community Council, Kingsborough Alumni Association, Board of the Midwood Development Corporation, Vice Chair TWU Local 100. Ben patrolled his native Midwood as an NYPD auxiliary sergeant for 28 years. A volunteer with the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, he tutored Russian immigrants and learned Russian to connect with them. Ben was a subway hero more than once. In 2012, he noticed a cable connecting train cars had come loose and was hanging dangerously near the electric third rail. This got him nominated for a Daily News Hometown Hero Award. Later came the better-known train evacuation when the passenger spilled gas in his car. One of 2 Orthodox Jewish transit workers, Ben twice fought the MTA for religious freedom and set precedents for other workers. In 2007, he successfully won the right to wear a yarmulke at work. In 2019, he fought for the right to take off work for Rosh Hashanah. If you ride the subway, You've benefited from Ben's knowledge and efforts. Ben had an encyclopedic knowledge of subways and trains. He did a tremendous amount of work to help improve New York subways, brainstorming and advocating for the MTA reorganization plan, the communications-based train control, the BQX, and other transit initiatives. He quietly did this work through his union, political connections, and numerous committees on which he served. Peers describe him as one of the foremost historians of real marine freight operations in New York. A photographer and author, he documented New York's railways and barges for over 40 years. He preserved historic trains and subways and gave his time, resources, and knowledge to numerous museums and transit organizations. On leave from conductor duty at the time of the spring 2020 lockdown, Ben returned to work because numerous coworkers were getting sick. He contracted COVID-19 and died April 28th, 2020. Benjamin W. Schaeffer Way would stand in the neighborhood where Ben lived, patrolled the streets, attended shul, and served many years on boards and community groups. He spent his life within the present borders of the 48th District and almost all inner bordering Midwood. In a neighborhood hard hit by the ravages of COVID-19, it's all the more important that we remember District 48's movers and shakers who were lost to the virus, died alone, and didn't receive the public send-offs they deserved. I was his significant other for 10.5 years. I don't need your pity. I need closure. Please vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next registered speaker I have is Gregory Hamatis. I'm not seeing him in the participant list at this time. Mr. Hamatis, are you here? Next registered speaker I have is Anthony Beckford from from Assembly Member Brian Cunningham's office. Did you have a few words?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
And could you
Joanne,
clarify? Can you clarify if you're speaking on behalf of the assembly member or just yourself?
This would be me speaking on my other hat of myself.
Thank
and
you.
not in regards to the assembly member. So I will definitely, I'm not going to reiterate everything that Martin and Lisa stated, but I could basically say that everything they stated was true about Ben. Ben was a dear friend to many of us throughout the communities. You know, Ben was definitely a selfless individual and advocate and activist, you know, a hero, you know, that many have gotten to know about him if they didn't know him personally. I got to know Ben personally, you know, through just advocating for the community and trying to build a bridge between our communities. And he was very vocal and very, I would say, boots on the ground when it came to making sure that the rights of all people was honored and also respected. In regards to Ben being a hero, you know, Ben showed time and time again, you know, on numerous occasions that he was willing to be selfless and actually risk his safety for the safety of others. That is what you call a community leader. That is what you call somebody who deserves to be honored. As a Marine Corps veteran, you know, we give Purple Hearts to many of our vets who have done the same thing at the times of war. But it's time for somebody like Ben to be honored for the fact of what he has done throughout the community, what he's done outside the community, and what he has done for the people, and that his name continually lives on. And I deeply, deeply ask for the board to grant this renaming of the street after Ben.
Thank you very much for those words. I just want to recognize that Councilmember Farrah Lewis has joined us this evening. Does Legislative Director from the Council Member's Office, Troy Olson, have words to add here before we move to the board?
Yes, once again, I thank you for accommodating this request. We have 3 community boards in our district, 13, 14, and 15. 13 and 15 have public hearings, and the co-naming process does go through them, and 14 defers to the council member. And so we thought it proper to ask the community board to chime in. And I know this is the 3rd done in 2 months, and I thank you so much for that. And I am here to, help you become more comfortable with this process and share whatever the other community boards are doing regarding, some have a petition requirement, a number requirement, whatever makes you feel more comfortable with the process, so you feel like the co-naming process has some order and process to it. And so I don't take it lightly that these requests were accommodated. I thought it was more proper to include the community than ultimately have it deferred to us, especially if there was maybe conflicts. So I thank you very much, and I also think it's appropriate. Like on a personal note, we lost a lot of people to the coronavirus, and both people, I think tonight, the theme is their lives were cut short by something, and they were also solid community contributors, and I find that to be fitting and appropriate, and a fitting send off and memorialization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll open just a reminder, we have less than 4 minutes to this public hearing. I'll open the floor to board members if they have questions. Just raise your hand. Indy, I see your hand up. Is that from before?
Oh, it is from before, but I just I wanted to mention that the way this was presented, showing all the criteria that fit for it, this seems appropriate. Like I would endorse this naming as well. And thank you for sharing about his life. His life was very inspiring.
Thank you very much. And just to note, we're right now using the council's criteria for co-naming. We'll bring this criteria to the executive committee, and we'll look at it further and see if there's any additional items that this board might want to pursue in the future. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and move towards a recommendation from.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, so that was Ephraim. Who seconded that?
Elizabeth Denny's.
Okay.
Two of us.
Great, thank you. We'll vote in the reverse. Are there any board members who wish to vote against recommendation to the full board for this co-naming?
Steve Cohen votes no.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone wish to abstain from voting? Remember, abstention, it is your duty to vote positive or negative unless you didn't have enough information. Anyone wishing to abstain? And is anyone ineligible to vote? All right, thank you very much, everyone. I will see you in less than 2 minutes back for our general meeting. I'll have the results of this vote at that time. Thank you. So this public hearing is closed at 6:59. Hi, everyone. Looks like we have a quorum. Perfect. Get myself together here. All right. Welcome back, everyone. This meeting of Brooklyn Community Board 14 is called to order on Monday, October 3rd at 7:00 p.m. under the applicable statutes of New York State. the Charter of New York City, and the board's bylaws, and Robert's Rules of Order. The board's policy is to encourage detailed public discussion of matters before the board at our committee meetings and at public hearings. Consequently, except by board members, there will be no public discussion at our regular monthly meetings of matters about which a public hearing or a committee meeting has been held. Specific service delivery requests or complaints should be brought to the attention of the district's office staff by calling the board office during regular business hours or by visiting our website anytime. Other matters of civic interest may be brought before the board during our scheduled public comment period, which will begin tonight after all of the business on the board's monthly meeting agenda has been concluded. No partisan political appeals or advertising of for-profit enterprises will be heard. Persons wishing to speak during the public comment period were asked to pre-register. This evening, the attendance will be taken from the participants list. Moving on to the minutes of the September meeting. Were there any changes via email submitted for these? Okay, I got a head shake from the board that there was no changes via email. Are there any changes to these minutes via the floor?
Yes, one statement.
Yes.
Name is spelled incorrectly.
Okay, we will correct that.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to adopt the minutes with the correction requested by Ephraim Nuremberg?
Motion to adopt with correction, Gail Smith.
Seconded?
Seconded, Florencia.
Thank you very much. We'll vote in the negative. Is anyone against adopting the minutes of the September meeting with the changes that were brought by the floor? Seeing none. Anyone wishing to abstain? Seeing none. Anyone ineligible to vote? Excellent. The motion carries and the minutes have been adopted. Moving on to District Manager's report. District Manager Sean Campbell.
Thanks. First of all, sorry for the spelling errors. We know how to spell your name. I don't know what happened there.
Happens once in a while. It's all good.
Okay. Mine gets misspelled a lot too. So it's been a busy September. We finished district managers from throughout the borough, finished with budget consultations. Last week we had a 7-agency day, so 7 and almost 8 hours of consultations to round out the other 20 agencies we met with on preceding September days. And like always, you know, it's sort of a mix. I get a lot out of the conversations. Sometimes it's very budget focused, and sometimes it's about program and service and an agency mission. And so it tends to be very it makes me optimistic because I see there's so many people in the city who are working really hard to bring important services and programs to you know, to everyone around the city. Always very impressed this year with ACS and their expansion of programs as they pertain to youth who have been justice system involved, and then followed that up immediately by making sure our YNCOs at the precinct were familiar. And so they've had a follow-up conversation. So things like that, there's this sort of like kismet and serendipity that results from the meetings, even if we don't get everything that we will have on our budget priorities, which we will have a hearing about next month as I try to distill everything that we learned over those hearings. You know, and then I also get the fun facts. You know, I like the fun facts. So 10,237 trees in our district. And there'll be a quiz later. And then I think another big takeaway that I want to share even before we get to next month's hearing is just note that every agency is understaffed, and some of them really substantially. DOB is down about 25%. You know, that's 1 in 4 positions is unfilled at the Department of Buildings, and we depend on them a lot. HPD also has a lot of inspectors jobs that are open. and FD&Y, and almost all of them, with very few exceptions, and some of them more significant than others. But we're feeling that in the office in terms of agencies getting back to us. So we're trying to be patient with the agencies, and we ask the public to be patient with us as we work hard to get answers with fewer human resources available. Also attended an NYPD, the Brooklyn South had a loss prevention meeting with all of the commands in Brooklyn South and a lot of the merchants, from the big corporations like Target to our small mom and pop shops. And I'm just, want to give a shout out to the 70th Police Precinct because Deputy Inspector Separano actually had one of these just for the 7-0 before Brooklyn South had theirs. So he's ahead of the curve on that. But they were also pretty interesting and I think will be fruitful conversations in terms of working with the loss prevention staffs of the stores. Here's something funny. It is both snow plow season and heat season. So you might see the sanitation trucks driving around on Sundays with plows on them. It's not because it's actually snowing, but they are doing their route runs so that they know what they have to contend with. They know that they're bringing the right vehicle on the route with the number of on-street restaurants. Sometimes they have to change which vehicle, a smaller plow or sometimes a Bobcat has to take over certain parts of the route. So they're doing all of those tests. So you'll see them on Sundays driving around. They're about halfway trained at Bqe 14 as of today. Heat season means that any day that it's below 55 degrees outside, it has to be 68 degrees Fahrenheit inside. And any night, regardless of temperature at night, this is newish, HPD requires that it be 62 degrees Fahrenheit inside. So in FY22, HPD issued 4,800 violations and issued 750 HP actions. So they take these things seriously. Call 311 if you have a heat or hot water issue, and then call us to let us know so that we can advocate for a quick response, because HPD inspectors they're low on those too. We have leaf bags. So there was an announcement at the last meeting that we would try to provide the paper bags for people who are raking leaves off their lawn, and they are here now. So if you could please email the office at the info@ email address and make a request for bags so that they'll be handed out on a first come, first served basis. So get them while the getting's good. Looking at my notes are really messy today. I'm sorry. New board members. We have, I know that some of you took part in the Borough President's zoning and land use training. I think that was just last week, maybe the week before. Yeah, the week before. We have the orange zoning books in the office, and if you're a board member and you don't own your very own copy of one of those, come on by and pick one up, because they're here for you. And we can also, for members of the public who are interested, be happy to hand one to you on loan. And all you would have to do to get it on loan is to promise to bring it back. And I think that is it from me. Thank you for your patience with my disorganization.
You're never disorganized. Thank you very much. All right. I want to acknowledge that Councilmember Farrah Lewis is on the call. Councilmember, did you want to address this assembly?
Yes, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be with you all this evening. I hope you all are doing great despite the weather outside. I have on with me one of my new staffers. His name is Daniel. He's on and will be covering Community Board 14. And I'm really glad that Sean highlighted earlier that most city agencies in the city of New York are down in staff. That includes some of the elected officials' offices, but we're trying our best to onboard as much as possible. We know a lot of people in New York City would prefer to be remote. These are the kind of jobs that you can't do remote. So we're looking for staff in most offices that I know in the city council. So wanted to just share that Daniel's a new employee on the team. I just wanted to share with all of you that in September, Mayor Adams signed 2 of my maternal health bills into law that would provide access to doulas, midwives at city hospitals, and a reporting bill to track the number of birthing people suffering with endometriosis and what we know as PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, as a preventative measure that would support birthing people seeking to have children. We have this conversation about maternal health all the time in the city of New York, but never provide the measures in order to address it. So I'm hoping that my bills are able to save lives and support folks that are interested in having children. We know that October, we observe Breast Cancer and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So our office will be launching a plethora of programs like mammogram screenings. We've already had 2. We have another one coming up, self-defense classes, in order to support folks in our district, as well as bystander training and know your rights seminars to support survivors. So we'll be sharing that information with you all via email. And lastly, I just wanted to quickly share that the Redistricting Commission is currently deliberating the redistricting process for 51 city council lines, and Council District 45 is compromised of its count of the Coney Island corridor of our district, parts of Church Avenue, as well as Remsen Village. However, I'm hopeful that District 45 will remain as much intact as possible. I'm hoping that my colleagues could join forces with me to make sure that District 45 could remain whole. I personally want to thank Councilmember Yeager for taking the time to work with me to advocate on behalf of both of our districts in order to keep our districts whole. And I just wanted to wish all those that observe Yom Kippur a peaceful holiday. Thank you all for the opportunity. I'll be on for the remainder of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Member. I'll just go through my list and recognize who's joined us. From Councilmember Rita Joseph's office, Joelle Ducevay is here. From Councilmember Ina Vernikov's office, Legislative Director Troy Olson. From Assemblymember Cunningham's office, Special Assistant Anthony Beckford. From DA Eric Gonzalez's office, Nancy Lulu. From Congresswoman Yvette Clark's office, Ellie Slavin. CB14 Chair Emeritus Alvin Burke. I see Ken Lazar from the DOB is here. If I've missed anyone, please or you're new, please throw your name in the chat and I'll give you a shout out. Also welcome Daniel from Councilmember Farrah Lewis's office. Moving on to the chair's report. Good evening, board members. Happy National Latinx and Hispanic Heritage Month. For those observing Yom Kippur, may your fast be easy. Wishing those observing a memorable and blessed Mawlid al-Nabi, and wishing those observing a colorful and bright Diwali. I bring to you sad news. I wish to acknowledge that longtime Community Board 14 member Li Hua Chao-ying has passed away. To her family, we are deeply sorry for your loss. May her devotion to civic service live on through her family. Moving on to public hearings. I just want to note, some of you heard this before. During the actual public hearing, we have some additional board members on for this activity. It is your duty to have an opinion about matters before this board. An abstention is a decision by a board member not to vote. One legitimate reason for a board member not to vote is because information about the motion was limited or unavailable, or they were unable to process the information in due time. In this case, in the case of these public hearings, each board member received a city council criteria for street co-namings and written and spoken testimony from the applicant supporting the action. So please know that if a board member chooses to abstain, it will be assumed that they were unable to meet their fiduciary responsibility of reviewing the materials provided beforehand. So starting with recommendation, co-naming of Avenue N and Ocean Avenue to Moshe Berkowitz Way. This public hearing was held on October 3rd, 2022 at about 6:23 p.m. The purpose of this hearing was to hear public testimony with respect to a request to co-name Avenue N and Ocean Avenue to Moshe Berkowitz Way. CB14's policy on street co-namings are to defer to the relevant New York City Council person, as street co-namings are administered through omnibus bills proposed in council. This hearing is being held at the request of New York City Council member Ina Vernikoff. The recommendation from those board members in attendance of the public hearing were total board members were 24, 16 affirmation votes, 4 no votes, 1 abstention, and 0 ineligible. I just want to ask Legislative Director Troy Olson if he's still here, if he had any comments. Otherwise, I'll bring a motion before the board. And if there's any questions from board members as well.
Chairwoman Brown, it's Joe Dweck. I just want to thank the councilwoman for bringing it to us, because really people have not brought it to us in the past. So I wanted to thank her for that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Olson, did you have any words?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for having these hearings once again. Thank you to Sean for work and really everyone who worked to put this together on the agenda. I know it's asking an extra hour, and there is a deadline of November 6th to get these in. So there, you know, I don't take it lightly that you all agreed to have a little bit more time taken out of your evening. So thank you very much. And I just really think that community input is preferable. And so I thank you so much for having these hearings. And just to reiterate that, so that it was 16 affirmed.
Yeah, 16 affirmed, 4 no, 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions from board members before a motion comes before you? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the street co-naming?
Motion to approve the street naming.
Seconded?
Second, Gail Smith.
Thank you very much. We'll vote in the affirmative, in the negative. Are there any board members against the co-naming of Moshe Berkowitz Way?
Steve Cohen votes no.
Liz Denny's no.
Dawn Walker, no.
Joe Dweck, no.
Thank you. It's my preference if you're voting no, if you would just speak up and not raise your hand in these matters.
Musa Hassoun, no.
Thank you.
Deborah Valentine, no.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any abstentions?
Martin, I'll abstain.
And anyone ineligible to vote? Thank you very much. Mr. Olson will get that vote to you as soon as it's tabulated. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, a public hearing that preceded the last is the co-naming of Avenue N and East 15th Street to Benjamin W. Schaeffer Way. This public hearing was held on October 3rd at 6:40 p.m. The purpose of this hearing was to hear public testimony with respect to a request to co-name Avenue N and East 15th Street to Benjamin W. Schaeffer Way. CB14's policy on street co-namings are to defer to the relevant New York City councilperson, as street co-namings are administered through the omnibus bills proposed by the council. This hearing was held at the request of New York City Council member Ina Vernikoff. The recommendation from those board members in attendance, 26 board members in attendance, 25 affirmations, 1 no, 0 abstentions, 0 ineligible. Mr. Olson, did you have any words specifically about this co-naming, or are you satisfied at this point?
I'm satisfied. Thank you, Martin, for presenting, and thank you everyone who testified at the public hearing.
Yes, agreed. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from board members about this co-naming?
Motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is to approve the street co-naming. It was motioned by Ephraim. Any seconds?
Second the motion.
Thank you. We'll vote in the negative. Nina, you have your hand up.
I was just going to second the motion. I'll take my hand down.
Okay, thanks so much. So we'll vote in the reverse. Are there any board members here against the street co-naming Benjamin W. Schaeffer Way?
Steve Cohen votes no.
Are there any abstentions?
सारी जगह बना के रखी बेकर भी है ने तो बेकर उसको तो आ जाएंगे ये तू ऐसा नहीं करता
I'm sorry, there's some chatter on the line. If you wouldn't mind muting your phone, that would be great. I'd appreciate it. Seeing no abstentions, is there anybody ineligible to vote? All right, thank you so much. Mr. Olson will have the votes tabulated and delivered to your office. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in these public hearings and the recommendations before the board.
Madam Chair, just to state for the record, while we don't have the tabulations will be recorded in the minutes and shared publicly, but would we state for the record that the motions have passed, they've carried, and both have been affirmed?
Yes, it appears to me that for both the first public hearing, which is Moshe Berkowitz Way, it looks like the motion carried. And secondly, for Benjamin W. Schaeffer Way, it appears to me that the motion has carried. Thank you. Moving on to the Borough Board report. October Borough Board's meeting is going to be held this Thursday, October 6th at 6 p.m. So you all get out of hearing a very long, detailed discussion about that. I'll report out on this meeting and November's meeting at our November general meeting. And that's it for my report. We're going to move on to topical committees. The first committee to report will be Housing and Land Use, please.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Greg Alvarez, co-chair with Talisha Stainville of the Housing and Land Use Committee. Just a couple things to report. On September 19th, we had a committee meeting that Talisha emceed with David Weisglass of the Department of City Planning, our liaison regarding all things planning. He appeared to speak about upcoming text amendments that we're going to expect to the city zoning resolution, and it's all in connection with the City of Yes initiative that we've heard from Mayor Adams. It's very early stages, but they did provide us some overview. They're targeting 3 goals that they'll be looking for. First is zoning for zero carbon. The second is zoning for economic opportunity. And the third is zoning for housing opportunity. For zero carbon, they're going to try to make it a little bit easier for things like electrical vehicle charging and considerations involving wastewater and stormwater infrastructure, among other things. For economic opportunity, they're going to try to make certain businesses a little bit easier to open to get around certain zoning rules that restrict it at the moment. Housing opportunity, they're looking to diversify housing options, things like shared housing, accessory apartments, basement apartments, equitable housing. They're trying to create a more affordable housing, and that also translates to more affordable senior housing. So these are big picture things that we're going to hear more about in the coming months. There were a lot of questions that were entertained, covering a variety of topics, including single room occupancy units, which were of a concern, outreach to other agencies, because there are other initiatives going on, including Borough President Reynoso's plan regarding tying land use and healthcare public health together. So a lot of other things were considered as well. Enforcement, current limitations going on in the zoning resolution, and possible pilot programs to help guide these things along. So we'll hear more in the coming months. I welcome you to take a look at that particular committee meeting. We have it online. if you weren't in attendance, and you'll hear more in the coming months. Just the other item to point out, and I think Sean, you had mentioned it earlier, on September 22nd, the Borough President's Office did host a ULERP training, which I know I understand a number of board members did attend, but I'll put in the chat just in case anyone did not attend because it was live streamed, just to see if anyone wants to brush up on their ULERP. So that's it for now, and we'll have more programming in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair Alvarez. I see Sean Campbell has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we'll also add, thanks for putting it in the chat, Greg, and then we'll add it to our website as well, so it'll live there as a resource.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Human Services, please.
Hi. So we haven't yet had a meeting. There's nothing to report, but we do have an upcoming meeting in November, which I think will be very, very interesting. And we have some very good presentations coming up. I'm sorry, I'm sort of falling asleep here. I'm in a different time zone, but I know that we will have somebody from One Brooklyn Health presenting, and Sean just helped me out because I can't remember now.
Nina, you're such a trooper for being here. It's such a late hour for you, or early hour actually. So yeah, we are continuing. We're confirming more presenters, and the date will be Wakil Ahmed. Wakil, mute please.
Yes, I'm here.
I'm going to text him. But yeah, so hold November 7th and prepare yourself for an interesting and important agenda.
I'm
Thanks,
looking
Nina.
forward to it. Thank you.
Sean, I'm here.
Thank you very much. There he goes. He's muted.
Sean, we also have the not-for-profit roundtable coming up in a few months, right?
Yeah, we're working on pinning down a date. I'm kind of trying to time it with Center for an Urban Future's report on the city's efforts to register and pay out on contracts on a more timely basis. It's something, it was another thing during budget consultation. I asked every contracting agency if they were caught up on their registrations and paying our community-based organizations who provide the service. And so there seemed to be, the city's making strides on that. So I want to time it with that. December-ish. Stay tuned.
Thank you. And thank you, Nina, for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Nina, for being here.
Thank you, Joel, for adding that in. I thought that the idea of moving the meeting up for December rather than in the spring has a lot of advantages for the participants.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Moving on to transportation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, wanted to congratulate board members who were recently appointed to the Transportation Committee. We definitely look forward.
We lost your audio, Steve.
Yeah, we lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Very low.
Can you hear me?
Your mic is definitely not working at the moment.
Sound low, Steve. Can you pick up the volume? You sound low.
Can you go to another committee and come back to me?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll punch it to the end. Moving on to youth education and libraries, please.
Hey, folks. Good evening. And so I hope everyone's remaining safe and calm and warm. So the update is just that we have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, October 25th. And right now, the current agenda is that we'll get an update from the Brooklyn Public Library and then other business. That's it for the committee.
Thank you very much. Moving on to community environment, cultural affairs, and economic development. I believe I do not have Dwayne Joseph here. I have Barden here, but he is new to co-chair. I don't remember. Is there a meeting coming up, Sean? I don't think so.
We don't have them scheduled, so, but once we do, it will be, look, there are a lot of things on the docket, so it will be a good full meeting, so stay tuned for that as well.
Look forward to it.
Thank you very much. Moving on to community safety.
Good evening, everyone. We haven't had any meetings scheduled for this month, but we have tentatively a meeting coming up on the 22nd, FDNY or OEM, or possibly our 70th precinct. Of course, it will be in the email when it's confirmed. And I just wanted to say that our precinct, the officers at the precinct have been working diligently to ensure our safety within our communities. And shootings has been less. However, there was a shooting on the 18th of September at 3:30 in the morning. It was non-fatal. It was some dispute over food. Thank you.
And I want to jump in there just to be clear, everybody, that meeting is November. We're looking at November 22nd
Yes.
to be confirmed. Remember, this is a really early meeting in October for us. So usually we have the next month's calendar set by the meetings, and we're getting there, but we don't quite. But November 22nd, hold that date for community safety.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Swinging back around to transportation. How you doing, Steve?
Good. Hopefully the signal's a little better. I relocated. But let me know if the audio goes out. So I'm not sure when I dropped off the last time, but I'll repeat myself. So apologies for that. I wanted to congratulate board members who were recently appointed to the Transportation Committee. We very much look forward to your contributions to the committee over the coming year. And I wanted to congratulate Ed Sen, who was named co-chair of the committee. I look forward to serving as co-chair with you, Ed, over the coming year. Wanted to mention that we're planning on having a November meeting with DOT about the proposed Bqe Detour running through our district for 3 weekends in 2023. That date to be announced. And regarding the Bqe Detour Proposal, on September 22nd, there was an in-person meeting with DOT organized by Assemblymember Carol, co-hosted by our committee, CB12 and CB7. This was a presentation geared toward the impact of the proposed detour during Bqe closures over 3 weekends next year, while repairs are being done to parts of the cantilever down Prospect Expressway onto East 5th, and then down Caton and Linden Boulevard. DOT emphasized that they would get the word out.
Yeah, we lost you again. The signal.
Well, while he's trying to fix it, I'll ask everybody to hold Wednesday, November 2nd. I'm waiting for DOT to confirm that for their CB14 presentation on the Bqe detours, and we may add some items to the agenda, but the co-chairs have confirmed the 2nd. Do we have you back, Steve? I will also add that the Bqe presentation is on the website under projects for those who were not able to attend that meeting. And we live streamed it. So that's, Anya, that's also on our website already, right? Yeah. So if you couldn't participate because you were at the ULIRP training, take a look.
Sean, I shared it on the chat. Steve and I were talking about it, but yeah, it's on YouTube on the CB14 channel.
Great. There it is in the chat. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you very much, Steve, for trying. Thank you, Ed, for pitch hitting. And thank you, Sean, for filling in the gaps. That concludes topical committees. Moving on to our ad hoc committee. We have the CB14 Flatbush African Burial Ground Task Force. If you'd like to chime in there, co-chairs.
I guess that would be me since Dwayne is not here. And I think that Sean will be able to give more detailed information, but there is an upcoming meeting on October 20th. Is it going to be a virtual meeting? I can't remember.
Yeah, so we'll be virtual on WebEx like we're hosting now. It will immediately follow the budget committee. That there's kind of we're doing a twofer that night. So the budget committee will meet, and that will be immediately followed by a conversation with the task force. And Councilmember Rita Joseph's office will participate in that meeting, and they're bringing some of the other city agency from people from the mayor's office and I believe parks. So I think it will be an interesting update from their office given their recent efforts. That's it.
Thank you very much, Talisha. Thank you, Sean. That concludes topical committees and the ad hoc committee. Moving on the agenda to public session. This brings us to our public comment period. Board members are expected to remain for the public comment period. Because we're meeting remotely, all speakers were asked to pre-register via email to the board office. Any member of the public who is not able to register in time can follow up directly with the board and staff, who will include appropriate announcements on the CB14 website. Matters of civic interest and announcements of public events are invited. No partisan political appeals or advertising of for-profit enterprises are permitted. Service delivery requests should be brought to the attention of the staff by email or during regular business hours. Please let me reinforce that if you have a community concern, it is very likely that the matter is a service delivery item. We can do far more to help address the situation if you contact the board office directly, so we can individualize our attention to the problem at hand. Each speaker will be permitted up to 3 minutes and may not receive additional time from another speaker. The board has an obligation to conduct its business in an orderly manner. Any person preventing the meeting from continuing will be muted and possibly disconnected from the meeting. The intent of the public comment period is to permit the board and the community a chance to hear diverse perspectives on public issues. Accordingly, we ask that groups be represented by a single speaker. It is now 7:38 p.m. Anya Hoyer will be announcing our previously registered speakers at this time. Thank you, Anya.
Good evening. We have 12 pre-registered speakers, but I don't believe everyone's here this evening. So I will go through the list as registered. Lisa Derrick from the Office of Assembly Member Bishat Hermelin. Are you with us? Moving on, I don't see her name. We'll come back or flag your, raise your hand if you are here. Next, we have India Dansby from MHHC Brooklyn. Go ahead, India.
So, hello, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is India Dansby. I'm the Communications and PR Specialist for Moore Sites Health Center. We are a federally qualified health center that has been serving the Bronx community for over 30 years. We recently, as of September 19th, opened up our first location in Brooklyn, New York, in Flatbush, at the location 1095 Flatbush Avenue between Cortelyou and Clarendon Road. We offer primary care services from family medicine, pediatrics, women's health, which also includes a doula program, behavioral health, nutrition, and we also have a WIC program that is housed in our facility. Our facility is currently accepting new patients, and we are open currently from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We will be extending our hours in the next few weeks so we can have extended hours for residents to be able to see the physician at later times of the day. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, India. Our next speaker is Nancy Lulu from the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office.
Good evening. Thank you, Anya. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. First, I would like to extend greetings on behalf of DA Gonzalez to everyone. Just wanted to share that on Saturday, the Brooklyn DA's office, along with Senator Salazar's office, hosted an immigrant resources fair for asylum seekers in Williamsburg, where meals, clothing, as well as legal counseling was provided. Also, I want to acknowledge that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Someone you know or care about is likely experiencing domestic violence, whether you can see it or not. So just to know that help is available around the clock at the Brooklyn DA's office. We have a domestic violence bureau, and it can be reached at 718-250-3300. Also, the Brooklyn Family Justice Center, 718-250-5113, as well as the New York City 24/7 domestic violence hotline at 1-800-621-HOPE. And as always, if there's an issue, a matter, a complaint, something you would like to bring to our office's attention, to call 718-250-2340, and that is the Action Center. And to everyone who's observing Yom Kippur, may you have an easy and meaningful fast. And if there's anything you'd like to address with us, you know how to reach me and the Action Center. Thank you, Community Board 14, for everything.
Thank you, Nancy. Our next speaker is Raziq Seabrook from National Grid.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I would say that this I'm going to give an extremely condensed version of a much longer presentation, but I beg for your patience in any minor overage I may go over. I'm the Brooklyn Community Manager for Community Affairs, and I'm here to talk about the CLCPA, the Climate Action Council, and things that are going on in the state level. Namely, I would like to go through some. I have a slide presentation that's already been sent to the board, so I would implore you all to go on your website where it will be posted. But with that being said, there are basically three key takeaways that I'd like you all to take away from what I say here tonight, as it relates to feasibility, reliability, and affordability of the state's plan. We at National Grid are very much in line with the state's plan, but think that in these three aspects, there are some things that need to be worked on. For instance, as it relates to feasibility, the plan contemplates that 70% of our power grid will be electric by 2030. However, we're currently at 26%, and this plan doesn't necessarily have a concrete way of us getting from where we are now to there in 8 years. As it relates to reliability, we know that the plan, not going into too many details about the engineering, but the plan doesn't necessarily account for some reliability concerns that we have given our research. And if you look at our report, the New York State Independent Systems Operators also cite some reliability concerns that they have starting as of 2023. The New York ISO is an independent entity responsible for maintaining New York State's power grid. So both us as energy provider and NISO as macro overseer of the energy grid both have a similar concern about reliability. And lastly, as it relates to affordability, the plan doesn't sufficiently account for end-use customer costs. To date, as you go to the plan cannot state how much the bills will be affected for those who are end-use customers. We think this is of great concern, particularly for those who are on fixed incomes and entities such as faith-based organizations that we know and nonprofits that we know rely on benevolence and charity and to continue operations. So with that being said, understanding that you guys have been very grateful with me trying to talk about something very technical this evening. I'd ask if you guys have any questions of me. I would come back to a relevant committee meeting or a general board meeting to present for something longer. And again, the presentation will be posted on your website. Thank you all for the opportunity to present, and look forward to in-person meetings going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seabrook. Sean, your hand popped up. You have anything to say?
He beat me to it, but yes, we're going to circle back to get you scheduled for a committee meeting in the near future as possible.
Thank you.
We'll look at November dates. Sure. I'll talk to the chairs and get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you both. Take it away, Anya.
Okay, our next speaker is Lanier Miley from WISE. Go ahead, Lanier.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share information about a college readiness program and scholarship competition that is local to Community Board 14. I am the Relationship Development Manager at Working in Support of Education, or WISE for short. We were established in 1998, and we are a college and career readiness nonprofit that provides programming to students, educators, and at-risk adults across the United States. In addition to contacting schools and advertising to students, we're also reaching out to local stakeholders, and which is why I'm here to speak to Community Board 14. I'd like to quickly give an overview of our programs and then get down to the nitty-gritty with quality of life innovations. First program I'll speak about is the Euro Challenge. In the Euro Challenge, high schools participating in that program explore economic and social issues facing the Euro area, such as the debt crisis in Greece or economic growth in Italy, and propose solutions and compete against other teams from other high schools. Throughout the challenge, students conduct college-level research, they learn to write and defend proposals, and they gain teamwork and critical thinking skills, and we have been the national coordinator for the program since its launch in 2016. Next up, we have the Financial Literacy Certification Program. It is an award-winning initiative that supports teachers in providing quality personal finance education and empowers students to become certified financially literate. Participating schools teach a course or unit on personal finance and then administer our nationally standardized certification test. Under the financial literacy umbrella, we also offer a program called MoneyWise, which offers domestic violence survivors an opportunity to become financially literate through a 12-week course on personal finance that culminates in the MoneyWise Financial Literacy Certification Test, which is a nationally standardized exam. Next is the WISE Institute. It is an in-school program with an innovative STEM career initiative that provides students with opportunities to learn about career paths in a range of fields through seminars, case studies, and other activities. Focus areas may include finance and economics, again, STEM, sustainability, and college exploration delivered by industry leaders and faculty. And finally, the main program that I came to talk to you all about is called Quality of Life Innovations. It is WISE's oldest program. It is 28 years old this year. And in that program, it's a civics engagement focused program in which students identify a community issue that they care about, such as teenagers and cybersecurity, language barriers affecting New York City students, social media's impact on youth's body image, accessibility of healthcare or pollution. They conduct background research and their own original field research to examine the issue and develop and implement feasible solutions for change.
Sir, your time is about up. Did you want to just give us a to wrap up?
Sorry. Quickly, we're working with the Department of Youth and Community Development. This after-school program is currently being offered to schools that are local to James Madison High School, which is at 3787 Bedford Avenue. All of the programs that I mentioned are free. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next registered speaker is Lilia Lopez from NYC Connects.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Liliette Lopez, outreach specialist from Night Connects. Night Connects is a free of charge program for people with any disability, any age. We connect people to services, resources, or it can be based on people's needs. We can assist with Medicaid applications, housing applications, food stamps application or certification, or we can also assist with DRE, SCRE, advocacy, access right applications, or as I stated, it can be based on people's needs. I share my information with the board, our flyers, and I put my contact information. Please share our information with people who need it, who need from our assistance. We are in the 5 boroughs, and as I stated, it's free of charge. Thank you so much for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you very much. Our next registered speaker is Anthony Beckford from Assemblymember Cunningham's office.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. On behalf of the Assemblymember Brian Cunningham, I bring greetings to the board and community members. For those of y'all who don't know as of yet, we have moved our office from 330 Empire Boulevard to 249 Empire Boulevard. We just had a grand reopening last Friday. We're on the corner of Rogers and Empire. The assembly member just had his 4th bill signed by the governor. This is his Heat Island Impact Bill, which basically directs the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to do an impact study under the disproportionate heat conditions in urban areas due to constant development in those areas, since it is known that there is a quality of life issue a lot of times when it comes to overdevelopment. The assembly member is also planning to host numerous events at our space, allowing the boards to also meet in our space and the committee members also, which is one of the reasons why in the space we say that it's not just our office, it is a community office. We are also gearing up for Thanksgiving season to teaming up with other elected officials to hand out turkeys and free hot meals. We're also gearing up for the Christmas holiday season as well too, where we have broader productions, which is Afro-Carib folklore singing group that is going to go around doing caroling throughout the community. We're also gearing up to do more outreach throughout the community, provide more COVID tests to the community, provide more more masks, more hand sanitizers and so forth. As much as we have the relaxation of the measures, we still uphold our community's health to the highest, as a priority and so forth. But again, thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Sabrina DeJuste from Councilmember Lewis's office.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm going to be speaking in behalf, if that is acceptable. Thank you. So my name is Daniel. I'd like to thank my Councilmember Farrah Lewis for introducing me earlier in this meeting. It was great seeing many faces from last week's 70 Precinct Community Council meeting, as well as all the events we've had in the confines of Community Board 14. And it's great to be hearing all of this discussion about the new initiatives and issues and concerns that are going on in our neighborhoods. So I wanted to let you know of the successful events that we've had over the past couple of weeks. We successfully hosted 2 mammogram screenings in East Flatbush and Midwood areas, where dozens of women were screened for breast cancer free of charge, regardless of immigration status and residency. That was a very highlighted event for us this year, as the council member is looking to expand advocacy for women's services going forward in both legislation and in the district. So to continue that, we are hosting our 3rd annual Take a Stand series, where we're hosting several events on intimate partner violence and providing the community with the necessary tools and resources to tackle domestic violence in our district at home. So I'm highlighting a particular event that we're having, which is part of our health fair on October 29th, which is a Saturday. That's going to consist of not only tables for many of our vendors and partners, but also workshops, classes, and brain power wellness to help our community as well. I'm going to put some details about that in the chat later. I'm also going to highlight that we are also launching participatory budgeting and had successful neighborhood assemblies in our East Flatbush district last Saturday. We'll also be doing one in the Community Board 14 at the Flatbush YMCA on Thursday, October 20th. So please stop by and give ideas. Also, you are able to submit ideas on the online web form, which I'm also going to be putting a link in the chat as well. And I really appreciate everybody's warm welcoming to my collaboration with Community Board 14 as we move forward in this fall. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thanks, Daniel. Next, we have Alida Mahaka from Brooklyn Public Library.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Alida Mahakam. I'm from Brooklyn Public Library, Kensington branch. I'm here today to share some quick updates from the library. There are some changes to our DVD loan rules. Now patrons can check out our DVD and CD collection for 3 weeks instead of 1 week. And you can check out up to 50 items and place up to 15 holds on any circulating items. And BPL also no longer charge patrons for loss or replacement cards. And I would like to mention some upcoming programs at Kensington Library. We are going to have an outdoor arts and crafts programs for kids, which is the Origami Pumpkins. It's on October 12th from 4 to 5 p.m. And since October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, Kensington Library will also offer an introduction to cybersecurity program at the branch on October 31st from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And lastly, as you may know, book challenges and bans have been on the rise lately, and teens are facing book bans and censorship in their local schools and public libraries. So BPL created Books Unbanned program that provides young people with access to banned books. Young reader ages 13 to 21 can apply for a free e-card that they can use to access our ebook collection and other online databases. For more information of Books Unbanned program or any other programs and events, you can visit our website at bklynlibrary.org. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Do we have Joseph Rivera from the Racial Justice Commission with us this evening? Not seeing him here. One more chance for Lisa Derrick from Office Assembly Member Rodney Bishop Hermelin's office. Okay, our final two registered speakers. First, we have Samira Noor, resident. Go ahead. Okay, and hearing no one there, the next resident we have registered is Candace Delavant. Go ahead, Candace. Candace, I see that you're here and you have your hand raised. You need to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak. The microphone icon is at the bottom of the screen there. Okay, Chair Brown, those are our final registered speakers. It does look like Candace Delavant is here, but unfortunately unable to speak at this time.
Understood. Thank you very much to everyone during our public comment period. Very interesting information. Joel, I've seen your hand up. You have something you want to throw in there?
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to give a report on behalf of the office. Hello, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be with CB14. Quick things that I would want to share with you is 2 weeks ago, last Friday, Councilmember Joseph and her team has a meeting with the New York City Health Commissioner. So we're talking about some crucial matter related to the district, especially things related to rodent problems. And then we brought to his attention like that he needs to speed up the process from when people call 311 and ask for investigation and the time that they have someone come to the place and investigate. And then we brought to his attention also the fact that some individuals are complaining that they are receiving summons when they are asking the city for help. So he understands that sometimes it doesn't make sense if someone asks the city for help, and then the first thing the city will do is to provide summons. So that's one thing. So we talked about that, and he understood, and he promised to work and provide more resources. Second thing is definitely regarding participatory budgeting. Again, we are doing it this year, this cycle 12. I am asking you, I already put it in the chat, and again, I'm asking you to spread it out for us and ask more people to submit ideas. Sure, I believe I emailed like CB14, please, because we want more people to involve and we want to have more capital project, because definitely it's an opportunity for people and all neighborhood to have their project funded from the council. Another thing is Council Member Rita Joseph and her colleague Sandra just get a bill passed related to 311 sometime when your primary language is not English and you're asking for an interpreter. So sometimes it's difficult to have one, and the waiting time is kind of long. And then we are asking for the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunication to report on that, to see how long someone has to wait until they got an interpreter to assist them. And last but not least, it's about the African burial ground. So we are working with DSNY and we get it clean. And then, so this is a process that will keep on going until we decide, like we will have a meeting on the 20th, and Sean talked about that. So having it clean for now is the best that we can do, and the DSNY has done a great job. So please, I invite you to go and check it out. Thank you so much, and I will mute myself. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. And this concludes the public comment period of this meeting.
Joanne, can I jump in before it's totally concluded? Just because for anybody who, Candace, especially you wanted to speak and didn't get to. I think what you needed was service delivery. So please call the office during business hours and we'll help you out with what you wanted to address tonight. I noticed that Troy and Ellie Slavin both put hands up too.
Yeah, just real quick on behalf of the Office of Councilwoman Ina Vernikoff, we recently did a thyroid screening with the 60th precinct, and we are hoping to expand that and have one for the 70th and 61st to cover the entire district too, as well as the engine ladders at the firehouses, and perhaps in the future a community space to where we can have another event. But first, we want to make sure those who've been, especially for people who are 9/11 responders, get screened for thyroid cancer. And then additionally, just wanted to note that a piece of small business legislation, a one-stop shop, passed at the stated last week. I think that's going to be really helpful. It will kind of, I've always been looking for a spot that collects all the forms and various applications for starting up a business in this city, and so that's what that would do. And then thirdly, I don't know if it's kind of just outside Community Board 14 districts, but I don't know if anyone has recently seen the dilapidated state of the historically preserved Wyckoff Bennett House. As of a few years ago, apparently it was in much better shape, and in the last few years, it's really fallen on hard times. So we're getting as many agencies involved, and anyone who's seen that recently who cares about, one, it's a safety issue, I think, first and foremost, but it's also a historical preservation issue. It's both a historical a landmark nationally on historic registry and also locally. So it'd be a shame if this piece of history that dates back to the 18th century is gone. So.
All right, thank you very much. So I am going to close the public comment period now. Thank you for everyone who spoke. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I think there's still a hand up from Mr. Slavin.
I don't see a hand up, but please go ahead, and I'm going to ask all the representatives to please register beforehand. I appreciate it, so I can see for time management. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Slavin.
I'm sorry about that. I'll be very, very short. I put into the chat our address, phone number, contact. There's a lot of information on our website, which is clark.house.gov. Please, I will not take up your time. Go onto that website. There's a lot of information what's going on in Washington. A lot is happening. I want to wish everybody a happy and healthy new year. And again, thank you for having me on the chat. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you very much to everyone. Meetings adjourned at 8:04. Thank you so much, Anya and Patricia, for all of your work tonight. And thank you so much, Sean. Good night, board members.
Thank you, CB14. Have a wonderful night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, all. Hi,
Good night.
Felicia. Thank you. Good night.
Hi, Dawn. Hi, Alvin.
Bye.
Hi, Indy.